What if the people who hurt you the most were actually helping you? What if the betrayal that shattered your heart was something your soul agreed to long before you were born? What if none of it, not the loss, not the heartbreak, not even the failure, was random? And what if you chose it all? You didn't come here to suffer, but you did come here to grow. There is a secret buried deep in the fabric of your life, a sacred agreement made long before your first breath. Not a punishment, not karma in disguise, a soul contract, a spiritual vow written in the language of growth, remembrance, and awakening. You may not remember it now, that's part of the design, but your soul remembers everything. If you've ever whispered, "Why is this happening to me?" or cried in silence wondering, "What did I do to deserve this?" then this video is your mirror, your map, and your medicine. Because tonight, you won't just learn what a soul contract is. You'll remember. You'll understand why certain people came into your life exactly when they did. Why love turned to pain. Why opportunities fell apart. Why that one person, the one who wounded you the most, still lives in your memory, as if they were part of something deeper. They were. Your soul invited them. And by the end of this journey, a truth buried beneath your pain will rise to the surface. Not just to soothe you, but to awaken you. Because you didn't come here by accident. You chose this life. And you chose it with love. Before you were born, before the name, the body, the voice, the story, there was you. Not the you shaped by this world, but the ancient, luminous you, the soul. You were already conscious, already aware, already wise. In a realm beyond space and time, you stood at the threshold of another incarnation. Not as a victim being sent down to earth, but as a co-creator preparing for one more sacred assignment. And you asked the question every soul must ask before stepping into the veil of forgetfulness. What do I still need to learn? It wasn't asked with guilt. It wasn't asked with fear. It was asked with purpose, with devotion. And from that question, your life, this life, began to take shape. You chose the wounds you'd carry, the lessons you'd face, the love you'd experience, and the people who would walk beside you, trigger you, teach you, break you, and remake you. Every soul you would meet was chosen with precision. Some were selected to help you feel joy. Others were chosen to stretch your heart open in ways nothing else could. And a few were chosen to play the hardest roles of all. The ones who would awaken your pain so deeply that only through it could you remember who you truly are. This is the soul contract, a sacred agreement made before birth, between your soul, your guides, and the souls of those who would walk your path with you. It doesn't mean every moment of your life is scripted. Free will is still yours. But it does mean there is a deeper structure, a spiritual architecture that surrounds your life like invisible scaffolding. The people who feel familiar the instant you meet them, the job that breaks you open, the illness that changes everything, the betrayal that sends you into the dark night of the soul. None of these are random. They're invitations. They're the echoes of your soul's own design. And that design always, always serves one sacred purpose: to help you evolve. Not just emotionally, but spiritually. Because your soul didn't come to earth to be comfortable. It came here to remember what love really is, when it's hard. It came to learn forgiveness, when it feels impossible. It came to understand freedom, not by escaping pain, but by walking through it awake. And so, it chose wisely. It chose parents who would shape your sense of identity, It chose environments that would activate your fears, your desires, your hidden gifts. It chose teachers and friends and lovers and even enemies, all playing the roles they agreed to before this life began. Imagine this. Before your birth, there was a great circle of souls, old companions, some from lifetimes long forgotten, gathered with you in the higher realms. They looked into your eyes and said, "I love you enough to play this role, even if it hurts, even if you forget who I really am, even if you curse my name. I will trigger your pain if it helps you heal." That is the depth of soul contracts. They are not written in ink. They are forged in love. Unconditional, eternal, sometimes painful love. And they are not always romantic. In fact, many soul contracts involve pain because pain, when met with awareness, is one of the most powerful tools for soul evolution. Think of the moments that shaped you the most. The ones that changed how you see life, yourself, the world. How many of them were easy? Probably none. That's because the soul doesn't grow by watching sunsets and sipping tea. It grows by being broken open, by facing the mirror, by choosing love even when fear is louder. And so your soul, in its infinite wisdom, chose certain challenges, not to punish you, but to prepare you, to give you the exact experiences that would awaken your hidden strength, your sacred empathy, your spiritual fire. But here's what they don't teach you. You are never bound to the contract. You are not trapped in fate. Soul contracts are not cages. They are choices, and choices can evolve. The contract is there to guide you, not to control you. And when you begin to awaken, to remember who you are, you can choose again. You can release what no longer serves. You can rewrite the script, not because the contract failed, but because the lesson is complete. This is your power. And tonight, you begin to reclaim it. Because the people who hurt you, they're not just villains in your story. They are soul mirrors. And sometimes, the ones who wound us the deepest are the ones who loved us the most before we ever arrived. Let that truth land. Let it break you open gently. You don't need to understand everything right now. You just need to remember. You are not a victim of life. You are the soul who chose it. And that changes everything. Long before your first cry echoed into this world, long before your eyes opened for the first time, your soul was planning. Not in a cold, logical way, but in a way only the soul understands. With clarity, compassion, and a vision that stretches across lifetimes. You weren't alone in this. There was a council, not of rulers, but of wise, gentle guides. Some were souls you've known for ages. Others were beings of light who never incarnate, who simply stand in quiet service to your evolution. Together, you reviewed your soul's journey, not just from the last life, but across many. The patterns you've carried, the wounds you've repeated, the virtues still waiting to be born. And then, the choices began. What will you learn this time? What karmic threads are still unfinished? Which qualities must be awakened in the crucible of human experience? The answers weren't random. They were chosen with the full knowing that Earth, this dense, beautiful, chaotic place, is one of the most sacred classrooms in the universe. And so, you chose the curriculum. Not of careers or achievements, but of the soul, compassion, forgiveness, patience, courage, presence, truth. And to learn those things, you needed people. Real people. Messy, complicated, perfectly imperfect souls, just like you, who would meet you at precisely the right moment, with precisely the right energy, to unlock something in you. Some of them you chose for love, some you chose for friction, and some you chose because only through them could you remember who you truly are. This is where soul families come in. A soul family isn't just people you feel close to. It's a constellation of souls that travel together across lifetimes, sometimes as lovers, sometimes as siblings, sometimes as strangers whose eyes you meet for 5 seconds and never forget. Each role is different, but the bond is eternal. Soul families help each other evolve. They take turns. One life you may be the student, the next the teacher. One life the betrayer, another the betrayed. But always, always, the connection is rooted in love, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because pain, when chosen consciously, can be the doorway to awakening. You see, the soul doesn't fear pain. The soul doesn't cling to comfort. The soul values growth, expansion, remembrance. And so, in the planning room before birth, you may have said to someone you loved deeply, "I need to learn self-worth. Will you mirror my abandonment?" Or, "I need to awaken forgiveness. Will you play the role of the one who breaks my trust?" These agreements are never made lightly. They require deep love, the kind of love that says, "I will let you forget who I truly am, if it helps you remember who you are." This is why some of the most painful relationships in your life were also the most important. They weren't mistakes, they were mirrors, and you weren't abandoned. You were being shown what you still carried inside, what still needed healing. Because this life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about meeting it with presence, with awareness, with a remembrance that every experience is sacred when it's met from the soul. But here's something even more beautiful. You are not locked into any contract. Every agreement was made with a clause written in light. Free will remains. That means no matter what your soul planned, you can choose differently. You can walk away. You can forgive sooner than expected. You can awaken earlier than scheduled. You can say, "I've learned the lesson. I don't need to repeat the pain." And when you do that, something extraordinary happens. The contract begins to shift. It's as if the soul, your soul, turns the page and writes a new chapter, mid-story. Not because the old chapter was wrong, but because you've outgrown it. Growth like that echoes across dimensions. It signals to your guides, your soul family, the universe itself, "I am ready." And they respond. New people appear. Old relationships dissolve. Opportunities you never saw coming start to unfold. Not as rewards, but as reflections of your new alignment. Because when you grow beyond the contract evolves with you. This is the dance between destiny and choice, the sacred tension between what was planned and what you now choose with awakened eyes. And that's the beauty of being human. You are not here just to fulfill a script. You are here to live it fully, to feel it deeply, and when the time comes, to rise above it. Because even the soul contract is not your prison. It is your portal, a map you created, but never lost the power to redraw. And that power? It lives inside you now, in your decisions, in your awareness, in the way you respond to the people and moments that feel familiar, fated, impossible to ignore. Every time you meet someone and feel, "I've known them before," you probably have. Every time a pattern repeats and begs you to choose differently, that is your contract calling out. Every time life tests your heart and says, "Will you love through this?" you are standing in the center of your sacred curriculum. And how you respond, becomes your evolution. So if you're tired of the patterns, if you're ready to release the pain, if you feel something ancient waking up inside you as you hear these words, it's not just a coincidence, it's a remembering. And your soul has been waiting for this moment, because the contract may have guided your beginning, but you get to choose how it ends. You may not remember the contract your soul made before you were born, but your life remembers. It leaves you signs, gentle, precise, unmistakable, if you know how to listen. Sometimes it starts with a pattern. The same kind of person keeps showing up. The same lesson keeps circling back. You try to move on, start fresh, change the story, but the same ache returns in a different disguise, and you wonder, why does this keep happening? That's not failure. That's a soul contract, rising again, not to punish you, but to complete itself. Because unfinished lessons echo, and your soul, in its infinite wisdom, will continue placing mirrors in front of you until you no longer flinch. But see the part of you that needed healing. See the old belief still gripping your heart. See the power you forgot was yours. These patterns aren't random. They are precision-crafted invitations, each one a sacred whisper. Choose differently this time. See it with new eyes. Break the cycle, not by running, but by awakening. And when you do, when you finally choose love instead of fear, or stillness instead of control, something shifts. The pattern dissolves, the energy lifts, and the lesson, long trapped in repetition, completes its sacred arc. But patterns are not the only sign. There are moments, fleeting but unforgettable, where time bends. Moments when something ancient inside you stirs. You walk into a room you've never been in, and it feels like coming home. You hear someone's voice, and your chest tightens with recognition. You meet a stranger and feel like you've been waiting lifetimes to find them. That is not imagination. That is memory, soul-level memory. Fragments of the contract breaking through the veil. Déjà vu is not just a glitch in the mind. It's a message from the soul. You've been here before. You chose this. Pay attention. And then there are synchronicities, not coincidences, but cosmic alignments. You think of someone, and they call. You ask for a sign, and the exact phrase appears in a book, or a stranger's voice, or a dream. You let go of something, and within days, something better arrives, almost as if the universe was waiting for your courage. These are not tricks. They are echoes. Echoes of a design your soul helped create. A design meant to remind you over and over again, you are not lost. You are exactly where you need to be. Because even when it feels like everything is falling apart, it may actually be falling into place. Especially when your heart is breaking. Especially when you feel alone. Because that's often when the contract is working at its deepest level. Soul contracts are not loud. They don't shout through your life. They hum beneath it, like a sacred vibration. And when you finally get still enough to listen, you feel it. In your chest, in your dreams, in the way your body reacts before your mind can explain. That tightness when something is wrong, even if it looks right. That calm when you meet someone who changes you, even if you just met. That pull toward a path that scares you and calls you at the same time. These are all signs, not just that you're on the path, but that the contract is unfolding, not as punishment, not as a test, but as a map. A map that leads not outward, but inward, toward your soul. And as you follow it, piece by piece, the world begins to respond. The right people appear, The old wounds surface for healing, and sometimes the ones who no longer serve your growth slowly fade away. This too is part of the contract, because some connections are seasonal. They were never meant to last a lifetime. They came to awaken one truth, shift one belief, deliver one message, and then go. And though it may hurt to let them go, it is an act of soul alignment. To release what no longer fits your vibration is not betrayal. It is evolution. Because the more you walk your soul path, the more your reality reshapes itself to match your frequency. And the more you trust the signs, the more they appear. Because this universe is alive. It listens. And when you begin to live in alignment with your contract, it moves with you, not against you. But there's something you must know. You don't need to decode every sign. You don't have to understand every pattern, every dream, every symbol. You just have to stay connected to the quiet knowing within you. The part of you that feels truth before it thinks. The part of you that doesn't need proof because it remembers. And when you live from that place, not perfectly, but honestly, you become the contract in motion, not a prisoner of your past, but the living embodiment of your soul's highest promise. And when that happens, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you stop waiting for life to prove your worth and start living as someone who already knows it. That is the power of remembrance. That is the path of the soul. And you are already on it. Some of the most powerful clauses in your soul contract are the ones you never wanted to face. The betrayal that shattered your trust, the loss that hollowed your world, the illness that slowed your body and sharpened your awareness, the dreams that slipped through your fingers, no matter how hard you tried to hold on. To the human heart, these moments feel cruel, unfair, random. But to the soul, they are sacred passages, initiations, gateways. Not because suffering is noble, but because certain virtues, certain awakenings, can only emerge through the friction of experience. You can read 1,000 books about letting go, but until you are forced to say goodbye to something you love, you don't truly understand detachment. You can talk for years about forgiveness, but until someone wounds you so deeply that your ego wants revenge, you haven't tasted what real forgiveness asks of you. You can imagine resilience, but until life brings you to your knees and you rise again, that word is just a concept. These are the chapters we rarely ask for, but your soul chose them with reverence. Not because you deserved pain, but because your soul saw something deeper. It saw the strength waiting to be awakened in your collapse, the wisdom hiding inside your heartbreak, the light that could only be born once your illusions fell apart. This is the paradox of the soul contract. It doesn't protect you from pain, it guides you through it, and always with one purpose: to reveal the part of you that cannot be broken. Because pain, as unbearable as it may feel, has the power to purify, to burn away false identities, to silence the noise long enough for truth to rise. It is in these crucibles, the dark night of the soul, that you begin to remember. Remember who you were before the fear, before the masks, before you thought you had to earn your worth. Your soul does not fear darkness. It chose to walk through it with eyes wide open, because it knew what waited on the other side. Not comfort, not safety, but truth. And truth is the most liberating force in existence. But that truth rarely reveals itself in easy moments. It comes in the silence after the storm, in the clarity that emerges when there's nothing left to hold on to. It comes when your plans fall apart, and something inside whispers, maybe this too is sacred. That whisper is your soul, not minimizing your pain, not excusing what happened, but reminding you that nothing is wasted. No tear, no failure, no heartbreak. It's all part of the unfolding. And if you could rise above your life for just one moment, see it from the soul's eye view, you would weep with recognition. You would understand that even the people who broke you were playing their part, that even the detours were perfectly placed, that even your deepest scars were written not in punishment, but in love. This doesn't mean you deserved what happened. It means your soul trusted you with it, trusted your ability to rise, to alchemize, to turn even your suffering into gold. That's the miracle of incarnation. Not escaping pain, but transmuting it. And your soul? It is the master alchemist. It knows exactly what pressure is needed to reveal your diamond heart. And so, it writes contracts that include challenge, not to destroy you, but to strip away everything that isn't truly you. Because what remains, after the breakdown, the betrayal, the loss, is something holy, something free, something real. And that is what the soul came here for. Not perfection, not performance, but remembrance. So if you're in the middle of a storm right now, if your life feels like it's unraveling, if grief has left you breathless and alone, pause, breathe, feel what you've been trying to escape, and know this: it's not the end, it's the opening. The tearing away of illusion, the crumbling of false foundations so something deeper can emerge. This is how the contract works. It doesn't ask you to avoid pain. It asks you to walk through it awake. And when you do, when you allow your wounds to become your teachers, your heartbreaks to become your guides, the contract becomes a living thing. Not a script you follow, but a dance you move through. In co-creation with life. With every step, you reclaim your power. With every breath, you write a new clause. I will no longer carry what's not mine. I will no longer chase what depletes me. I will no longer betray myself to keep peace with others. And just like that, the old contract begins to dissolve. The one written in fear, the one shaped by survival, and in its place, a new agreement emerges. One written in truth, in alignment, in love. And this time, you are not just the soul who chose the contract. You are the soul who is consciously living it. That is power. That is freedom. And that is the quiet, cosmic miracle your life has been guiding you toward all along. There comes a moment, often quiet and unannounced, when something inside you simply says, I'm done. Not in bitterness, not in defeat, but in truth. It's not loud. It doesn't shout. It whispers like a closing door, soft but final. And though the world around you may not notice, your soul knows exactly what's happening. A contract is ending. A lesson has been lived. A cycle, once essential, has now fulfilled its sacred purpose. You feel it not just in your mind, but in your body, like a heavy coat that suddenly no longer fits. Conversations feel hollow. Efforts that once made sense now drain you. And people who once felt like home now feel like history. This is not failure. This is graduation. Because not every contract is meant to last forever. Some are seasonal. Some are brief. Some come only to awaken one fragment of your forgotten self. And when that work is done, the energy begins to shift. But here's what we were never taught. You're allowed to listen to that shift. You're allowed to release what no longer resonates. even if it once felt divinely guided. You're allowed to walk away from relationships that no longer support your growth, even if they were once soul deep. You're allowed to say, I have learned what I came here to learn. I honor this, I thank this, but I will not carry it forward. This is how you rewrite the contract. Not with force, not with drama, but with presence. Awareness is the first pen stroke of a new agreement. Because the soul contract was never meant to be a prison. It was never about keeping you trapped in suffering or repetition. It was always a path, a map. And maps are meant to be updated as you awaken. That means if you've outgrown a lesson, you don't have to keep repeating it. If you've learned your worth, you don't have to keep proving it. If you've healed the wound, you don't need to keep attracting the pain. But change requires recognition. You have to see the cycle for what it is. You have to name the pattern that keeps knocking. You have to acknowledge the ache you've learned to numb. And then, you have to choose differently. That's the sacred moment. The pivot point where awareness becomes alchemy, where you no longer just observe your contract, but begin to shape it. This reshaping doesn't always require rituals or ceremonies. Sometimes, it begins with a single sentence whispered in solitude. I forgive myself for staying too long. I choose peace over performance. I will no longer carry what was never mine. And with that, the energy begins to shift. The old thread loosens. The next doorway opens. Because the universe listens to clarity. And when you send a clear signal, not just through your words, but through your actions, your boundaries, your self-honoring, everything around you begins to reorient. New people appear. Old attachments fall away. Synchronicities bloom like wildflowers. This isn't magic. This is alignment. You are stepping into a new phase of your contract, not by force, but by frequency. And sometimes, that shift comes after years of quiet suffering. Sometimes it comes suddenly, after one final heartbreak, one undeniable sign, one sacred breakdown that cracks you open wide enough to finally say, enough. That word, when spoken from the soul, carries incredible power. It ends karmic loops. It breaks ancestral patterns. It dissolves outdated vows. And in its place, something new begins. A fresh agreement. One rooted not in survival, but in sovereignty. This is the soul remembering its authority. This is the contract becoming conscious. And from this place, you begin to co-create differently. Not just accepting what comes, but choosing what aligns. Not just surviving the old stories, but writing new ones. This is the moment when pain becomes wisdom, when patterns become purpose, when the soul, once buried beneath conditioning and guilt, rises again. Not as something outside of you, but as the most honest part within you. So if you're sensing a shift, if your spirit feels restless, tired of the loop, aching for freedom, listen. Don't rush it. Don't fear it. Just listen. Because your soul is speaking. And when you honor what it's saying, when you release what no longer serves with grace, not resentment, the next chapter begins writing itself. A chapter you've been waiting lifetimes to live. One not bound by the past, but born from truth. It's easy to confuse soul contracts with karma. Both shape your life. Both follow you across lifetimes. And both seem to bring people and situations into your path that trigger, challenge, or transform you. But they are not the same. And understanding the difference can change everything. Karma is energy. It is the echo of your choices, not just in this life, but in the ones before. It's not punishment. It's not revenge. It's not a cosmic system keeping score. Karma is cause and effect. It is the law that says, what you put into the world, through thought, action, intention, will return to you, not as retribution, but as reflection. If you sow fear, you may harvest control. If you sow love, you may harvest healing. But karma does not judge. It simply balances. It says, you created this wave. Now meet it, understand it, integrate it. It is neutral. It is pure. It is automatic. But soul contracts are different. Soul contracts are not consequences. They are choices, made not as reaction, but as preparation. They are the sacred blueprints drawn up by your soul, long before incarnation, to help you evolve, heal, and remember. Where karma responds to the past, soul contracts look toward the future. They ask, what haven't I mastered yet? Where am I still closed? What will challenge me to rise higher, open wider, love deeper? That's why your soul didn't just come here to clean up old karma. It came to grow, to expand, to choose new lessons, to walk paths you've never walked before. And in many cases, karma and soul contracts intertwine. Let's say in a past life, you harmed someone, knowingly or unknowingly. Karma ensures that you meet that energy again, not to punish, but to balance. But your soul, in its wisdom, may create a contract with that same soul, this time to heal. So you meet again, this time as friends, or lovers, or strangers with a mysterious connection. And through the relationship, you're given the chance to offer what was once withheld and to receive what was once denied. That's the beauty of soul contracts. They don't just repeat karma, they transform it. They offer you conscious participation in your evolution. Because karma may return, but the soul contract decides how you meet it. Whether you repeat the pain or choose a new path, whether you close your heart again or let it break open into love. This is where your freedom lives, not in avoiding karma, but in responding to it differently. And your soul knew this when it made its agreements. It didn't just say, I'll fix what I broke. It said, I'll use every challenge as a doorway, every old wound as an opening, every karmic return as a chance to become more whole. That's why you may feel like certain people were meant to find you, why certain pains carry an ancient weight, why some struggles feel bigger than this lifetime. Because they are. But you are bigger still. You were not dropped into this life randomly. You walked in willingly. You looked at the web of your past, the karma, the patterns, the echoes, and said, I'm ready to evolve beyond this. And that decision alone already begins to shift your path. Because karma doesn't define you, it invites you. And soul contracts, they empower you. Together, they create the framework of your human journey. But you are the one walking it. With every choice, you rewrite the terms. With every act of awareness, you soften the karmic loop. With every moment of truth, love, or forgiveness, you open a new possibility that was never available before. This is why the soul incarnates. Not just to repeat, but to remember. To lift the weight of the past by choosing differently in the present. And to create a future that no longer reflects your pain, but your awakening. So if you've felt stuck, if you've believed that some suffering is permanent because of what your soul deserves, let that go now. You are not here to be punished. You are here to be free. Karma may bring the storm, but the soul contract gives you the wings to fly through it. And your choices, they are the wind. Your soul contract was never meant to remain hidden. It's not locked away in some unreachable realm, kept behind veils only mystics can lift. It's right here, whispering to you. In moments you've dismissed, in sensations you've ignored, in the quiet inner voice you sometimes silence because it speaks too softly or too truthfully. You don't need to read ancient scrolls or access cosmic libraries to know what your soul came here to do. You already feel it, in your gut, in your grief, in your longing for something more. Even when everything looks fine on the surface. That ache, that sense that your life is meant for something deeper, truer, more aligned. That's the contract reaching for you. You access it not through effort, but through attention. Not through striving, but by listening. Begin with intuition, that inner compass you've been taught to doubt. Have you ever felt a deep, inexplicable knowing that something or someone was meant for you? Or that something seemingly perfect just didn't feel right? That's not fear. That's not hesitation. That's your soul whispering through the layers, trying to keep you aligned with the path you helped design. Intuition doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It simply knows. And the more you trust it, even when logic disagrees, the louder it becomes. Then there are your dreams. Not all dreams, but the ones that stay with you. The ones that wake you in the night with tears or clarity. The ones that repeat. The ones that feel more real than the day that follows. These are not random. They are messages. Your soul, when freed from the mind's noise and the body's weight, often speaks through symbols, images that bypass language and land directly in your heart. If you've ever dreamed of places you've never been, people you've never met, conversations that felt like instructions from another realm, pay attention. Those are fragments of the contract surfacing, glimpses from the planning room before birth. You don't need to decipher every detail. Just let them speak. Write them down, sit with them. Ask gently, "What are you trying to show me?" And wait. Answers may not come in words, but they will come. Because the contract lives in the body too. In the way your chest tightens when you're off path. In the way your entire being relaxes when you're with someone who mirrors your soul's frequency. In the way time disappears when you're doing something that lights you up from the inside. These are clues, not loud, but clear. The path of your soul doesn't shout. It reveals. In synchronicities, in heart pulls, in the way everything seems to align when you're brave enough to follow what truly matters. And the more you listen, the more you live in integrity with what your body, your heart, and your inner knowing are telling you, the clearer the contract becomes. You begin to feel the difference between what's just good enough and what's meant. You begin to see relationships not just as connections, but as activations. You begin to recognize certain moments, even the painful ones, as pre-agreed thresholds your soul asked for. Not to hurt you, but to initiate you. Because the contract is not a rule book. It's a relationship between your soul and your human self. And relationships thrive in honesty. So speak to your soul, not out loud, not through dogma, but through truth. Through saying, "I don't know what comes next, but I want to remember." Through honoring what you've outgrown, even if others don't understand. Through trusting that the very longing in your heart is not a flaw. It's a compass. That ache, that pull, that quiet, unshakable desire for something more aligned. It's not wishful thinking. It's the memory of a life your soul is still trying to lead you toward. And when you follow it, you don't just live your contract. You co-create it, moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath. You become the sacred scribe of your own path. And the universe? It responds. Not because you've unlocked a secret, but because you've remembered a truth. The contract was never outside you. It's written in your bones. It lives in your heart. And it waits, patiently, lovingly, for the moment you choose to live from it fully. If you've ever asked, "What is my purpose?" you're not alone. It's one of the most ancient questions of the soul. And contrary to what the world often tells you, your purpose is not something you have to chase. It's not a job title or a 5-year plan or something you'll find when everything finally makes sense. Your purpose is woven into who you are, not who you'll become. It's in how you love, how you listen, how you show up for yourself when no one's watching. It lives in the quiet choices you make when your soul is louder than your fear. And the soul contract? It is not the purpose itself. It's the container that holds it. A sacred design meant to bring you face to face with the very lessons, people, and crossroads that unlock the truth of who you already are. You may not have come here to be famous, but you may have come here to heal a family lineage. You may not have come here to build empires, but you may have come here to love someone back to life, or to finally love yourself. Sometimes your purpose is a moment, a smile that saves someone you'll never meet again, a choice that breaks a karmic cycle for everyone who comes after you. Sometimes your purpose is invisible, and yet, it shifts everything. This is the mystery of soul work. It's not about achievement, it's about alignment. And alignment doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from listening deeper. It comes from asking not, "What should I be doing?" but "What feels like home in my bones?" And then, following that. Even if it scares you, even if it leads you away from what's comfortable. Because your soul contract was never about playing it safe. It was about coming alive. It was about remembering the truth you carried before this world told you who to be. And that remembrance? It doesn't always come in thunder. Sometimes it comes in stillness, in the way the right words find you at the right time, in the way your body softens when something is right, even if your mind doesn't yet understand why. You don't need to see the whole map. You just need to take the next honest step. And if you're here, still listening, still feeling, still wondering, then you've already started. You're already remembering. Because the soul contract isn't a test you have to pass. It's a path you agreed to walk. Not perfectly, but courageously. And every time you choose love instead of fear, every time you forgive instead of clinging, every time you honor your truth, even when it trembles, you fulfill another piece of what your soul came here to do. So let this be your permission to let go of the old story, to stop searching for answers you already carry, to trust the timing of your growth, to walk forward not with certainty, but with sacred curiosity. Because this life, this body, this path is not a mistake. It is your masterpiece. And you, beloved soul, are the artist and the canvas all at once. The contract is not over, but it is alive. Breathing with you, changing with you, waiting for you to live it fully. And now you are. So breathe and take the next step. The way is open.